All right, we are back. I'm Nate Emil, your host from DigiFX, and we're in our second session today for Unreal game development. We're going to switch it up for now. I can't hear myself in the headphones, so just go on there. Should fix that. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to switch it up, and like I said before, we're going to get into some level design. I was implementing a lot of models earlier today. Starting with some blueprints, having some issues copying that over, so I have to look into that. So I want to change it up a little bit and do something I do know, and that is we're going to do some landscape development here. So I made the mistake of trying to duplicate the landscape within our file here, and this Unreal even warned me, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said yes, and then it crashed and I lost some things. So lesson learned. Follow the warnings and guidelines that programs set out, because they may actually be there for a reason. Even if you think your system's too monstrous to fail. So what we have here, this is our existing level we were setting up. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a new one here. And I actually haven't seen this yet, so let's do a time of day one. That sounds cool. And let's just play this out and see what that looks like for us. Oops, I forgot I had my my VR headset set up, so let's go to the regular one here. Okay, so I'm going to say use Control L mouse, Control L mouse to move the sun around. Or Control left mouse, I'm guessing. Maybe it has to be out of... Huh. Use Control L plus mouse. Shift F1. What's going on here? Alright, well, I don't see the sun moving around, but I'm sure I'm just not doing the control right, but that's not important for us. We can just go ahead and focus on the landscape here. So at least we have an atmosphere actually set up for us to use. So the only thing I'm going to do here is just for my environment organizational aspects is I'm going to just drop all this stuff in this folder and minimize that, and then we can create a new landscape here. So, to create a new landscape, it's pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and create this right here. I'm not going to change the default settings because I'm pretty sure this is a safe setting for what we want to use. And I'm just going to get it set up for us. So the reason why I decided to open this up in an existing program is because I actually have some target layers already set up for us here, and that's something that I was going to use today. And let's see if they don't seem to be working here, but what I'm going to try to do is I'm actually going to try to see if I can open up. First, let me go ahead and just save current. We'll go to map. Let's call this map for now. Then I'm going to go back into level 1. And I'm just going to steal this landscape here. I'm actually going to see if I can. Let's just try the landscape because I want to see what this does for us. No, I just want to copy it. I don't want to paste it. Oh, well, last time I copied this, it crashed on me. So, edit. I guess maybe I already did copy it. So let's try this, and let's try pasting it here. Does that work for us? Edit, paste. Let's try one more time. Copy. Let's just say yes. All right, and let's paste it. Okay, and let's see if that worked for us. I think it's thinking. It's oh, there we go. And crashed. So, I think it's just having issues with the path structure, the file path, and then the references for certain things. When you duplicate them, maybe it gets bogged up and it's like it's trying to search two places at once. So that's probably not allowed, what we were just doing there. So I'm not going to bother Unreal with that one. That was a my bad kind of thing. And we'll try to do it a traditional way. So I guess what I can do here is I'll just go ahead and delete these real quick, and we'll just copy this whole entire level over, copy paste. And the reason why I'm doing this is it's easier for me to reuse what I already have set up in here than try to redo it. And so the resources they provide, we can tweak those versus actually starting from scratch. So now we're in level 2, and I'm going to delete all this stuff that is in here that we don't need, and I'm just going to keep the environment stuff. Yes to all, yes to all. Alright, and I'll go to my fidget spinner mode, and I'll just fidget spin all this stuff and delete it. Say yes to all that. And we'll go landscape. Alright, so probably don't have to keep any of this, but I just already have it in here, so why not? And then the only thing I want to test before I start doing this is I just want to see what happens if I go into my different mode here and I go to landscape and I just start molding it right here and I start sculpting. I just turn my strength up and my brush size up. Alright, so let's see, I'm going to save that out. And I'm going to go in here and see if it affected the other one. Because that would be a mistake if you start screwing up the good one just because you're reusing it, you know? So, let's see if I can zoom in right here. And I think it actually, so that's good. It doesn't affect our landscape, which I'm glad, because sometimes in other programs the landscape file is like a root access or data file, and when you edit it in one level it will change it in the next, but it looks like this one actually saves the landscape within the level itself, and so that's something that I'm learning as I go here. So there we go. So that what that's going to allow for us to do is just totally start from scratch here in terms of the sculpting, and then what we'll do afterwards is we'll try to add in our own custom target layers here, because that was actually something that when I was first jumping into this again I was realizing it's a little tricky to set up, and once you set it up it works good, and I managed to set up a couple custom ones myself, which I will share in a little bit. So what we want to do here is I just want to totally flatten all this out like it's a boring old map, and I know if I press shift, flatten. There's a flatten on here. There we go. So just pick usually flatten, it levels out whatever when you click down right there. And so actually what'll be good to do right now is we'll try to actually, even though we're not using this specific map, I will try to line this up with the level of whatever our background layers are here. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure this is completely flat, and I will just very carefully go on all the edges, and well, not too carefully, just kind of do this and hope that it registers all of that. Okay, and just so we can also start from scratch, we'll go in this grass mode and I'll just cancel out all that stuff here. So now we have a completely flat, grassy landscape that we can manipulate and change for our world here. The other thing I will consider doing real quickly is I'll just go into mode, place mode, and I will just try to bring these up to where we get rid of that. Oops. We get rid of that crack. All right. And looks like I have to move it over a little bit. I mean, the way this background's set up, it's probably okay that they're separate if you block off access to this. But if you actually want people to visit these terrains behind the map, you got to make sure that it's one solid piece or they're stitched, and there's a way for you to cross from one plane to another. So I don't think the intention of Unreal here is for you to exceed the boundaries of this landscape. I think these specific background landscapes they provide are meant to just be seen from a distance. And so to show you real quickly, since we're in the top of the landscape, maybe I can just show you real quickly what I'm talking about here. So if I go to my content and I go to, should be background, where is it? Background, beach scene. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, I realize. Let me just go like this for a second. Alright, just looking for the background one. Nature. Here we go. Photorealistic backgrounds. You go to mesh, and it's not mesh, it's going to be in the maps here. They give you a few different ones. So real quickly, let's just go through these and check them out. So they are pretty big, so, you know, give it a little bit of time. I'm always confused when it stops at a certain percentage, but this seems to be pretty normal behavior. Stuff in like chunks, or it gets through certain phases of the loading and then it continues on to something else. So I know if I go to these other ones, yes, I think this one has a little bit of extra in it. Yes, I think this one has a little bit of extra in it, which is why it's taken forever. It is working though. There we go. Okay, so this is just showing us all the modular stuff here and all the different terrains they give you. So that's actually not even the one we really wanted. Let's just go to these ones that are preset. So this is a cool example of what they actually give you, and so we got to give it a second to compile all the shaders here, but they give an example terrain here that is in the middle, a landscape, which I'm assuming if you wanted to, you could just use. However, I'm using the flat one there, but just like anything, I'm sure you can go in here and you can do whatever you want to it. But it also looks like it has some kind of texture on it or some kind of mesh. Let me see if I can zoom in somewhere closer. All right, well, I'll let it compile because it is building some fields for us, which is slowing down the performance. Okay, it should speed up now. I thought I already had this loaded. Okay. Okay, now my little spinner seems to be reacting faster. Okay, so this actually is also modeled. So you can reuse these ones they give you, which, as you can see, mesh pretty well into the terrain. So I probably should have done this. I imported a different one because I was using a textures from a different scene. And so what I'll probably do is I'll retexture the background and match my landscape and all the grass I'm using here. But you can use the same techniques to manipulate this, and let's just see if I can really drastically do something. And smooth it. We want to. But you get the point. So there's all these different landscapes you can load, and again, they all have to. Looks like they all have to bake their mesh here. This one actually seems to be in the right place. This is a canyon. I'm using one of the mountain ones. They give you a few mountains. So a very good jump start in terms of environments. And I actually think these are different scales that I'm looking at it. But maybe I'm wrong. No, it does look like it looks like it's different scaled maps. So choose which ones you think are good for you. And the cool thing about this is I can probably easily replace what I'm already using with one of these new ones and then end up tweak them eventually. So that's the cool aspects of this background asset they give you within the store. So it's free to use, so check it out, and I'm sure you will enjoy it like I am. But for us, we're going to create a simple map here that is going to be have beach, grass, jungle, and some other stuff, and then we'll add some water assets eventually. And I don't really know what kind of background stuff will be. I mean, I'm mostly just focusing on the terrain today, and so I'll just really just worry about modeling something that makes sense for like my little gameplay action that we're trying to create. And so I'm going to landscape mode, and we'll try to set up our brush to where we need to be. It needs to be in sculpt, and I was in paint mode. That's why I wasn't getting all these features before. And a lot of really good sculpting stuff here. So I'm going to keep it simple, and let's just see what the smooth does. Alright, so as you would expect, sculpting just creates bumps. And so what I'm trying to create here is I have a few different encampments I'm trying to make in the map. And so I know the center of the map is going to be the exact place where something happens, and I'm thinking about making like some kind of volcano or something in the middle. So let's just see what I would suggest in something like this. If it's actually, I would bring in the height map and actually use a real world volcano, versus this is just going to be something we model. So it's going to probably be not as exact. But let's just try this first and then see if we can go ahead and just play around with it. Because I also want to see the scale aspects of this. So brush size and sculpt, flatten tool, and So it's been a long time since I've actually done some landscape modeling. So if somebody does this on a routine basis, you're probably gonna be like, "What the heck is that?" And trust me, I know. I know, I get it. So we're actually looking for something similar to the flatten look here. So I think what I need to do is just really build out this mound here. And so I also think I'm not being massive enough. If this doesn't work, we will do something with a height map. So let's just sculpt. Let's bring the brush size up as big as we can go. Let's bring the strength down about halfway. All right, that's pretty fast. So even that is obnoxiously fast for us. So let's just do a little one like that. And let's just start randomly building out a base to what we would consider a volcanic area. The only thing I need to think about is the scale of the player and the size of the hill that I have to go to. So now that I'm thinking about it, this actual level here, the map itself probably isn't big enough for our multiplayer gameplay. And so I think I might actually want to create a a bigger landscape eventually, because it's hard to gauge the size of it when you're modeling it, but then when you're running around in here and you're looking at the player, it gives you a real understanding of, okay, this is what it's going to take to get up there, and this is the amount of distance you're going to have to crawl or run to get to that point. So, warning reported. Bluetooth. Oh, well, of course, it's because I deleted it. Yeah. Okay. Where is that? I forgot that I deleted the. I didn't realize that keeps it. So that's just saying here that this and this are not working correctly. And I hope that didn't delete it in the other game. But if it did, oh well. What are you gonna do? Okay, so this is a pretty big mound we got in the middle of this map. And it's almost a little bit too big because you need to make sure that whatever the edges of this map are left can be like hidden under a water element if it's an island, or morphed into a background like we see here. And so I'm thinking I was thinking for a few different kind of maps. I wanted a island map, and then I wanted a mountain map like this that's kind of meshed in. But I need to figure out if this is the right scale. So I'm just going to go ahead and play around with this. And also, I like to be able to zoom in. So this is going to be kind of just something I do for a window, and I go places. Where is it? Window. Where did I hide my my place stuff? Oh, it's because it's not in this mode. Yep. Okay. So I just want to do this so I can zoom into something in the middle. So we'll just put a landmark. This freaking one fly has been hovering over me all day. Driving me crazy. Okay. Right in the middle. And so now I have a center point. And okay, I'm only focusing on the landscape here. I'm not focusing on the background. That's just there for my viewing pleasure. So now we can go back into our landscape mode. Linear fall off. Let's see what that does. Okay, and for this one I want to make it flat, so I'm going to go way on the top of it, and I'm just going to do one little click in areas and try to flatten it out. Maybe hold it down for a second and roll it like that. Okay, so that's more like a plateau. And so we want to smooth that out, but that is good for us because it's going to allow for me to create like a volcano style thing here. And let's go brush size, and let's bring that down a little bit. That's too small, and that's too weak. All right. And now I'm pushing shift here, and I'm creating like the basin or the interior of the wall. And so that little circle, as you see, allows me to zoom in the area. That's the best way to do it, but that's what I'm going to do. So this is a very basic landscape model, and then we'll go in and add details and different textures, and we'll, so it's not just grass. And I haven't done this in a while, so I'm sure it's not going to be as good as somebody else could do it. But for the sake of me having fun with it, I'm just going to do it. Alright, so we got some kind of a base plateau thing. I'm sorry I keep on doing that, but there's a little fly that keeps on flying around my stream, and I gotta take care of him. Alright, so now I'll just bring this down. It's a little bit too deep. And then we'll try to scale this out. The goal is I want to make this center area a neutral combat zone. Or something that you have to, you know, reach from your home base. And to get there, it requires, you know, a journey or something of that nature. Then we can figure out, we'll put lava in it or something else. So again, I'm just going to see... Yeah, I'm not liking the scale of this. So, because my landscape's not big enough, the scale itself... I don't know if it's going to work for me here. Because I need to get at least 15, 20 players in a level in their own areas. And the areas I want them to be in, I want to say, are their own little communities themselves. So let me see here. So from about this, well, you know, it's not how as big as I envisioned it, but maybe this is a realistic size for us here. Let's go ahead and deleted all those for the sake of not needing them. Alright, well, before I continue with this, let me just go back into this infinite photorealistic one and see what this. I want to see what these huge scale ones look like. How big is this one? So I don't think this landscape's any bigger. Keeps on slipping through my fingers. Let me see what this one looks like when I go here. Play on this one. Because this one doesn't have a player involved. Okay. But it definitely has a lot of background. So this, I think this is good if you have somebody that's like flying around, maybe. And also, I like that they. Oh, well, I thought they did. I thought they kind of made it so they could join together. So, yeah, clearly with something like this, you're not meant. It's not meant to be traveled on. You're not tiling. What I've done with like geolocation mapping. Like my Oasis Live app is that we use tiles that get refreshed on the map, and then you use a horizon that fades out the opacity of the camera and the cloud so you can't see the edge of the map. And that's not something that we have set up here. This is strictly to be a background, and so that may not actually be what we want. We might actually want to model something one piece from the actual landscape, which will be a lot of work and may make sense to actually bring in a height map volcano of a real world volcano and use that as a reference. And so let's just do, since we're, you know, in this together here in our stream, let's actually look into that real quick. So, height. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You can just usually search height maps, and there's lots of them out there in the world. And more specifically, I can say height map volcano. I can spell. And ArtStation looks like they have a bunch. So yeah, like that. If we can make something like this, I'm not paying for anything though. crazy if you think I'm paying $5 for something that's easy to find free. But yeah, that might actually work for us. And so let me see if I can find a free version of something like this. So free download. And another place again would be to look is like Sketchfab probably would have a lot of good stuff like this. And it comes up. I know this one because I've actually seen this one before. Oh, interesting. This one actually has roads on it. So although this is a cool height map and probably the right scale for us in some kind of gameplay, the issue there is the textures themselves aren't what we want, right? So we'd have to figure out how to texture it better using our Unreal stuff. But I do like the scale of it. It might be a little bit too... you got to imagine how small you're going to be. And then there's going to be trees, and that's actually worth maybe paying $4 for because of the scale of what they're giving you. But the reality is that this is just a 3D version of a height map that he used. So I can just go like this, and let's see if we can do this. Height map. Let's look at images. And let's see if there's any height maps available, and there's not. Let's see if I just search height maps in general here. Yeah, so this is what I would expect to see in height maps. My height map is not working correctly. Okay. This is cool. Fictional landscapes from real data. So these are a lot of actually really good ones here. And I don't know what the deal is with height maps and using them for stuff. I guess they're like any image, you gotta make sure you have permission, right? But this is why something like this is probably better for what we're doing versus trying to model it. And that's the photorealistic stuff I've been talking about. Is looks like it's that. So they actually created an example of this. Let's see if we can do a better one though. And let's go ahead and create a new, and let's just go default this time so there's no bells or whistles that we have to worry about. And we're going to go to landscape and import from file and height map. All right, so one thing I know about height maps is that they have to be multiples of 1024, I think is the spec. I forget what the actual number is, but if they're not, they tend to not import correctly. And so let's just see what this, but you can multiply them. So if you want a height map that's twice as detailed, you can make it 2096 or whatever the double is of that. And so I wonder what happens if I just import this. Let's say volcano. Because again, remember, I want to make sure this is big enough for us. I don't want to make sure it's... okay. Is that what it's going to look like if I import it? Oh, and the resolution on this is terribly small. Let's see what happens. All right, well, there you go. That's the height map, and obviously, I think the sensitivity on that was different. So if we turn that down, it may actually work better. And so, but I can tell you right now that this is not a big enough image for us. So let's try a little bit harder to find a, you know what, I can probably actually multiply it more though, huh? we're gonna crank this up and see how it likes it. Well, you can see that it likes, let's see if I go 20. So it looks like 16 is the amount. And this probably is gonna crash the computer because I cranked that sucker, or crash Unreal, I cranked that way up. Well, it's doing something. Okay, well, that's not exactly what we want, but maybe it's just because this height map is not that good. So again, let's undo that, because that's not exactly a good start for us at all. Okay. Landscape, manage, scope. Before it let me actually delete it, but I think this is so big it just doesn't like it. Let's try that one time. New level. This. Don't save. Sometimes it's easier to start fresh on something when you're just getting started. So I don't like that resolution size, and I'm pretty sure that's not. Alright, so high res height map. So if you go in tools, you can go large, and it's not high map, it's height. Am I high? Okay. I saw this one a few times. Let's see how big we can get it. Alright, so this is what this guy made out of it. Looks cool. This volcano one wasn't cool, so let's go ahead and delete it. What's this? What's the resolution on this? Yeah, so this is a better size, 20 by 48. So it's actually 1024. Is that what I said? Yeah, so that is correct. So this is 2 times the 1024 with a bit depth of 32. So this is a legitimate height map from my recollection of my previous height map terrain creation. Volcano. So let's try with this one, and then we'll figure out what to do with it after. So that looks great. Scale 100 by 100. Let's just bring the quads back down to, what was it at before? Let's do 15. Let's do 1, and let's. What's this? See, this is where I kind of forget. Oh, I guess it's based off of the number of components. So what was the default set to? What does fit to data mean? Alright, that actually looks legit. Fit to data. Let's just fit it to whatever. Okay, so you know what? That's actually not that bad. I mean, all we had to do was listen to the game engine and what it wants to hear. That is a pretty cool map. How detailed are those? I don't know. But I can tell you that the scale of it is pretty awesome, right? So how do we, I wonder how, looks a little, oh, but that, yeah, so that works great. So as you can see, finding the right size and making sure it works within the parameters of the engine, you can get a pretty good landscape without doing all the crazy modeling. And you know, I guess I thought it would be more challenging when I started, but this looks like a really good level to start messing around with, even if it didn't perfectly smooth it out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just, before I try to smooth it out the way and look at the things, I'm just gonna Google real quick Import smooth height map Unreal. Yeah, so this person just wants to know the same thing. And alright, so okay, so it's just an import thing, which I kind of knew with the bit depth, but we had a 32-bit depth, so that shouldn't be as bad, and it might just be the scale is creating that. And so I don't know if there's a quick fix for this, other than just kind of coming in here and messing with it ourselves and fixing the amount of increments of change it makes on the landscape is the best way I guess I would put it. So circle, linear, smooth, this. Alright. I definitely don't want to screw up the terrain topography too much. I just want to kind of dive into what we already have here. So the strength needs to be turned down a bunch, right? No, so that's not right either. I'm just fiddling around with different controls here, trying to figure out what I like. Tip, smooth. We want smooth. We want pretty much the top two for the most part. I just want to see what some of these things look like. I want to use them, and that's probably not going to show up if I don't have the tool shrink good. All right, so this actually does a pretty good job of hiding a lot of that stuff. Like if you just go over here real quick, you see it kind of smooths it out so it's not as drastic, and that's probably one technique we can use to make it more realistic. I did a pretty easy job of fixing that right there. And then we can figure out, once we have that, then we can really tap in some areas to create what I would call base camps or home areas or starting points, spawn points, whatever you want to call it. But let's see how we can do this real quick, and then we can figure out the textures on it, because there's no textures on this right now. I can tell you that. I can tell you that much. But I'm hoping I can steal the jungle stuff that I had versus recreating them. So just doing a little, I guess you'd call this polishing of the terrain, and this is just so I can use this massive map, this very massive detailed map, and make it look a little bit more realistic when we add the textures here, because and it probably could have been fixed by an import setting. What I probably do is I probably could have imported this half the size in resolution, and then these things would have been half as big, right? Or a quarter the size and quarter as big. And that's just the math saying, all right, we're deploying this. It's kind of like the dots per inch aspect with the mouse. The same kind of thing with this. The wider the map needs to spread out the certain pixels, the more pixelated it's going to look at a larger scale. And so I'm guessing that's why this happens. And if there's a quick fix to fix this, please comment on my stream at some point, and I will do it the way you tell me to do it. Because I do not know everything about everything, that's for sure. But it seems to work. I don't really want to change much. I just want to kind of smooth out these jagged ridges to where it looks tessellation, or what do you call it? That's what it's called. But if I do that and I go in there, it does seem to do what we want, right? And we're actually using the hydro erosion. So this is probably the most natural effect you'd have. And I think that needs to come down. That needs to be more at the level we want. But what's cool about this is that imagine you start, there's a little base camp. Like imagine that we flatten this out really well. Or we'll squash it so it's not as high And then to get up to the middle, you gotta kind of crawl all this way, and then there's an area in the middle you can go after people with or something. So this will probably take some time to do, and I don't necessarily want to spend the whole time on the stream doing this. This is going to take a few weeks for me to create a level or a model that I'm happy with, probably between the texturing, the modeling, the placement, and then starting to get an actual game logic using the engine itself. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this part of it. I'm just going to get something in place, and we're going to move on to the paint stuff here. Alright, so this is where another thing that I know it's pretty straightforward. The foliage seems to be pretty straightforward here. But to set up the target layers, I was looking at this Jungle Pack here as a reference, materials, and in here I figured out that this is how they're doing it here. So in the landscape mode, let's go ahead and just drop this on here and see what that does for us. Do anything? I wish it's not that simple. Let me see if I drop it in here. Alright, that should do something, and it does. And so that should, alright, there you go. And then there's our entire map, but of course there's no light. So, or the light is weak sauce. And it's tiny. Or you know what, it's probably because this is such a massive mountain, I can't light it all. So, it's okay, we would like massive stuff. It's 2020, man. Games should be huge and ginormous. Alright. What I want to kind of do though is I wonder if there's a quick way to squash it like a bug, like this fly I've been trying to. No, I don't think so, because it's, oh wait, no, that did work. It just takes a while to recalculate it. So I'm just trying to flatten this out, like without I'm just trying to make it less of a incline so that the edge is, and you know, I don't want to act like I know what I'm doing here. I mean, I know what I'm doing, I just don't want to act like I know how to control Unreal in all of this stuff, because I'm used to this different engine. I've used it the past 3 years, and so, but I'm gonna learn to use this. Oh, and also the lighting probably needs to be rebuilt, which again, I've been so drastically trying to ignore this big bold red that probably when I need to listen to it, it actually means something here. So that's our player start. We have a player start in this one. I wonder what happens if I delete the player start. Does it make a little guy for me? No, it doesn't make a guy. That's probably in the preferences for the project. But let's just go ahead and say this out. Volcano. And then let's go back in here. Let's go here, and let's just look at all of this. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Let's copy that. Let's paste that. When in doubt, just paste something that works. And, oh, I don't know what's going on here. Now the lighting definitely needs to be rebaked, huh? So that's a light source. And this one seems to be a directional light. this can come up. And I don't know what this does. Let's just see that. I don't know what that does. Well, I know what it does, but I don't know if it's doing anything for us. Alright, this one can definitely come up. Bring that high up so that when we look up in the sky, we see something. Although that's not a very good, there's better ones that I saw than some of the other ones. Spear reflections, that reflection, and let's just start our guy at the top of this mountain so we can see down. Okay, so let's just try baking this real quick. And, well, apparently by pasting those in, I don't have to rebake it, but I'm pretty sure you have to rebake it for this landscape. So we saved some time by importing a height map, and I don't think I'm ever going to model landscape manually again. I think I would just always import a height map and then tweak that. You just get so much more detail in realism that you can focus more on the stuff that matters, like the plants and the actual gameplay. And I guess the only reason why you would want to model something from scratch if it's a really tiny thing. And so in my Oasis Live game, I have these little floating islands, and they're really just little spheres that are for AR. They just propagate, and so that probably makes more sense. And for something like that versus, I think, a level on this scale, even like Fortnite. Let's see what happened here. They probably pulled in a lot of height maps and just manipulated them. Okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry for upsetting you about that. Alright, so we have... Didn't like that we had more than one sky map. Which I totally can understand. Alright. I just want to try to get... This might not even be a lighting thing. It might just be the texture, to be honest. It might just be a texture. So I may have to come back and actually read up on the best practices for this, or watch somebody do it, and then once I figure out how they do it correctly, we can go in and do that, versus trying to figure it out together here. Try to build that one more time though. I know. I mean, I was reading that you can reuse the actual texture target or the layers. I just don't know how. I just don't know the best way of copying it over, because okay, yeah. So it's obviously, I don't know if you can read that, but it says the LOD and the static lighting are probably why you can't see anything happening here, or it just could be so massive it just doesn't know how to calculate it all. But it definitely looks like an issue of the lighting. So what I want to try real quick is I want to copy this. Yes, and I know you're probably going to crash, but let's go new level. Let's just do a time of day this time, and let's save that out. And let's go ahead and paste this in, edit, and it did paste in, and it is still big, and it's still, the lighting's still having issues. But to be honest, it's actually acting like this cube act, so that tells me it's probably something to do with the landscape mesh here. Oh, but we do have... Okay. Alright, come on. Does it work? Oh, that's all it was. Cool. So, there you go. I learned something new. And so, this is really what I was trying to import here. And once I just get all this enabled, you see I have a DigiFX grass I created, and DigiFX cliff, which all I really did was duplicate the settings that are already in place, and and then I was able to just come in here and do stuff. So let's see if I can actually paint this on, which I don't see why I wouldn't be able to. Paint it. Right. Right. Oh, also interesting. I didn't realize that our map is already stitched together in tiles, which now I understand why I asked you the multipliers. Looks like they break it up in chunks for processing, which is fine by me. Okay, so next hurdle is trying to get our landscape here to allow us to paint it. Alright, and that's another thing I was reading up on. Oh, there you go. Had a crash. Pushed our luck there. But we did learn a few things, and so now we can just directly redo that. We can do that in our original volcano scene, which was saved out, so it's a win-win. Okay, we go to content, DigiFX, volcano, and we'll go there, and I will paint, and I will add the ground, and I will add, all right. So I think what's happening here, and again, I'm going to reference the working one, as maybe I have the wrong material dropped onto this actual thing here. Because when you're working with multiple blend shapes or blend textures, a lot of times you have a special mesh that controls the variances in the colors, and the colors just represent the texture that you place down there. And so I go in here, my landscape, and oh man, all right, mode. I want to see what they're using here. All right, so they're using for the not the default, but the landscape material, which I think I actually have this in the default one, don't I? Or maybe I don't. Let's just go ahead and see what we have going on here. So this one. Okay, so no, it is the right one. But the question is, am I using the right material assigned to the... Alright. Yeah, so this is where you can add more landscapes to the actual targets. You can just basically multiply these and then make a new material, drop it in there and add it, and then it gets added to the list. And then this controls the different textures on the map itself. But however, I'm just not seeing where used for navigation. Okay. I shouldn't have to do any of this stuff. It should just be kind of set to the working one. Overall resolution 497. Let's see what the overall one is on ours. It's gonna be like 10,000 or something. Okay, so it's still only 20. It's only 4 times as big. Use for navigation. Okay. Let's go back in our... Again, we're just borrowing stuff that's already working until we get it up, and then we can fix it ourselves. Where's that jungle pack? It's not in there. It's here. Jungle. Materials. Landscape. So those are different. This is the one we want. So I think it's actually this one instead? Or that's the one I'm using, huh? Okay, well, you can see that's just like a color effect there in our very badly... Alright. But once you smooth it out, it actually looks pretty good. Because when you put grass and you put trees and stuff on this, it's going to look like a legitimate game landscape. You just have to really fix this mound and... I don't know. We'll figure it out. The important thing is you're up on a volcano. That's the only important thing, and that's down there is the base of it. So, again, I just want to try to see if we did I not have these enabled before? Is that why they weren't working? I just would assume I would see the and I read up on this in the help that you have to make sure. Oh wait, we got it. There we go. That's what I want. I wanted just to make sure I could see that. Okay, so we got the ground. Now let's try the grass. Come on, grass. Yeah, I got it working. Excellent. So that it was just me not having the right setting in place. So very cool. We have our grass setting here, and you know, obviously you can set everything in grass and reverse it, but there's two ways you can do this. You can manually paint stuff on, which is the easier way, or you can use what's called like a height map. I forget what it's called. It's called a splat map sometimes. Sometimes it's the angle of the side will dictate what the material is. So instead of us painting the side of this as a cliff, it would just know that it's this steep to make a cliff. And I haven't set that up in here recently, so I have to look into how that works. So I'll probably just manually paint this for just getting it done real quickly. But yeah, so it's pretty straightforward, right? And the splat map, I don't want to call it a splat map because I don't know what it's called in Unreal. Right. And maybe at the base we could put some wet puddles. I forget that it has to let everything compile there. But basically, you know, you're just manually doing this when you can compute this just like you can compute the Heightmap. You can compute the textures and where they fit, and that actually looks like it's like some kind of lake there. So what I'd probably do is I'd go through all these flat areas and put this brown stuff in, and then I would go back and do more details to make it look cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on this little area for now, just so we have a place to work with. And then I'll start putting in some trees, and then I can go back and tweak everything else, because I just want to make this area that I'm working in look legit. And so we'll just make it a very grassy, fantasy kind of level right here. And also you got to make sure that when I set up we want to make sure that these blend into each other. So as I go over one and the other, I think it's the fall off. Yeah, it's the fall off. We want to make sure that fall off needs to be high. We want the fall off pretty much all the way up, and that's a good way to blend in you know, the grass into this lake region here. We have all right, so you can see how it's not that hard to create a really cool landscape within the engine. Any engine, really. you just have to understand what the Heightmap's doing and the purpose behind the tools, and that's just something you will learn from, you know, specific use cases of how that works, and you can make the most of it there. And also another thing you can do, it's pretty good about also. Okay, so what I want to do is actually put my starting point now, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to import our little starting guy into that. But I want to. I think the next video I'll do is I'll actually add a custom character, whether it's our Oasis character or something new. We'll actually update the character that the default one with a new one. Hey, did I disable that? Or is it? What's going on here? Don't tell me I disabled that. No, I didn't. This wasn't registering it. Start. No, it works. So, I would say that this map's probably going to take me to where I wanted to be, a solid week of work. A couple of days of getting the model looking good, a couple of days of texturing and getting plants in place, and then probably the rest of the time of just putting cool elements in there to make it look unique, just like the Fortnite map is unique, and every map in every game is unique. So this is where, when I fidget spin out of control, I realize that I'm way off of where I need to be. So maybe a good fix of this would just be zeroing it out. Probably be a better way to do this versus me trying to put it into place, and that would be better for us. Okay, so yeah, I just really moving that farther than I thought I am. Oh wow. I just need to slow my roll on that movement there. It's the okay. Don't worry, I'll get it. I'll get it. Just want to get this to a point where I don't have to move it ever again. Alright. That's there. That's there. It's better. I just want to see the scale of the map once I do this. And this is kind of more realistically the scale I was trying to go for in my level concept I was creating. Like I said, I expect to have 4 localized areas, starting points within the game. Okay, so that looks good. Let's keep that there. And let's just let it save. And I always find it interesting when you save how it... I don't know if you noticed it, but I think it might be just something with my computer. So this is a pretty good scaled area. And, you know, to get up to the main area, imagine there's trees and there's obstacles in the way. This is a little local area. You're going to get, in the 4, we're going to have a bunch of cool stuff per team. And this specific one is in a mountain, but, you know, there's all different types of elements. And then you have to work your way up to the top where everything will go down. And I think it'll be pretty fun. And so that's cool. The other thing that is cool that I was playing around with is you can actually set up, I don't know how the stream's going to handle this, but you can set up 10 players at once. And so obviously it's overwhelming. You need more screens. It's like you need more cowbell, you need more screens here. But now every time I press play, it loads 10 clients. And so you can have 10 different spawn points and technically have 10 controllers plugged in and have 10 people, assuming this computer could handle it, which I think you probably need a pretty much an extreme computer or something a little bit more juice. This would probably handle like 2 or 3 at a time. But you can play the map with a multiple people. And so this is how you would essentially test your multiplayer experience before you actually put it on the internet on a server, a client side server, and then everybody goes through the queue system and the matchmaking like you see in all these games. But you can actually test it out with multiple people. So cool little features in there that allow for you to have fun with the game engine before you actually get to a place. And so that's essentially for a map like this. This is going to be like a multiplayer style game. And again, I mentioned this in the last stream, and if somebody's only going to see parts of this someday, I guess it makes sense to repeat myself. My Unreal Fest. Alright, so I recommend you watch this guy's video, or this video for Unreal Fest, and it talks all about landscape creation. I'm only doing stuff that is generic across the board pretty much for all game engines. It's not specific to anything that Epic's done with Unreal. To my knowledge, this is all pretty straightforward stuff. You may set stuff up a different way. I've used stuff called real terrain, which does what this terrain is doing. Unreal kind of gives you all of this stuff in one package, and but for the most part, this is all pretty generic, straightforward landscape modeling, texturing setup using Heightmaps. And then so in that video, they show you a lot of details about the controls there, and so I'm gonna probably look that over the next couple of days and start implementing some of those techniques into my development based off of just the knowledge and the guidance of people at Epic that know what they're doing and create this stuff. And so that allowed for me to have best practices with setup and the methodologies of creating things and making sure I'm not doing anything that's too out of whack. Being somebody that's kind of a self-taught 3D guy with the game engine stuff, I want to make sure I do it right, and I want to make sure that it's efficient. And again, I'm not sure if the scaleless terrain is a problem, but it doesn't seem to be too obnoxiously big. I clicked a button saying give me the parameters I need, and so if we just scale out though, you can start seeing the bases we're setting up there in our map there. So this right here is one base. This could be another base, and then maybe they all kind of convene with everybody. And then on the outside, you can put water, and then we can have some beach scenes there. And so that's pretty much, I'm pretty sure, how the Fortnite map or any map was created. Kind of what I'm doing here. They just put a lot of time and effort into it. So let's go ahead and move on. I'm not going to sit here and texture all of this on camera or set this all on camera. It just goes to show how easy it is to set up a terrain using Heightmaps. So let's check out the new water. Oh, you know what? Actually, I don't think this is 5.6, and I don't know if that really makes a lot of sense for us. But one thing we can do, let's go ahead and just zoom into let's make a cube real quick. I want to add some water to this to see what it looks like real quickly. Did I not? Oh, I have to drag it in. That's right. And I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm just going to put it about to the height that I want it to be. And usually what you want to do is water, you want to hide it somehow, or you want to have it fade out using a shader that uses a gradient fade. Kitty, what are you doing? Get out here. My cat is saying hello. But because this is kind of a large scale map, I don't think that is a possibility. At the moment, we have to figure out eventually how to fade the stuff in the horizon in the distance using shaders. So let me just see if I can scale this to a magnitude that exceeds the length of the map here. 1000, 1000. See what that does for us. Okay, and that's definitely not the right direction. So we want to actually one like that. Okay, that's better. And this is where I forget that it's just sometimes it's hard to negotiate it when you're so far away that you don't realize it. And the map's so big it doesn't know how to handle it. But all I'm trying to do here is just create water to make this an island. And I'd have to also watch how they tell you to do it within the game engine. But let's just go ahead and say 5,000 by 5,000 and see how big that is. That's probably pretty big. But if you think about it, that's probably a realistic size for if you need to see the water fade out at a far off distance. And you know, one thing we can also probably do is our sky sphere needs a little bit to be a little bit bigger, but I don't know if that's the solution by scaling it. We might just have to. What's going on here? How come I can't? Yeah, this is the one I was talking about. This one can probably be bigger, right? There we go. So it covers the whole map. But there's something kind of gross going on over there. When I say gross, I just mean it's not working. It doesn't look good. Alright, so we fixed that scale a little bit. But you can see even what we need to make sure is that when you're on the top of this peak here, and let's go ahead and just drop a circle up there so we can zoom to it. When you're the king of the castle, which, you know what, I think we're going to put a castle on this hill. That's pretty awesome, right? It's the very top right here. That is the summit of Mount Nate. Mount Nate. Or that's actually, I already probably named something because this is a real mountain. But all I'm getting at is the water has to exceed the horizon length there. And so that means it's probably still not big enough. But I have to make sure this is the right way to set up the water. I'm kind of just winging it. So let's put this right in the middle. And let's just go crazy here and go 10,000. Alright. And let's just see if that does anything for us. And let's call this one the summit. Even though we're not going to keep this, we're just using this eventually to reference, hey, this is the top here. And it allows me to, oh, what'd I do? I just do something. Okay, well, it's still not big enough, so I got to figure that out. I don't know how big I can actually make it before it just starts, performance-wise, starts killing the machine here. But this is kind of, once you change the LOD, which is the level of detail distance, right here, you should be able to make it to where you technically can drop into it and then stuff fades in as it needs to, because you don't necessarily want to see that grass. You want to see the grass everywhere. You just want to see the detail of it. And so that might just be a memory here issue, and maybe this is too big, or maybe it's just a setting. I'd have to look into that. But what I really came here to do is make some water. So before we do that, let's see if we can get this high enough to actually get into our mountain here. All right. So that right there, but it doesn't, that tells me those are probably lakes. And this is actually a good way of seeing real life. All right, so that's kind of cool when you go like that, but it's still not big enough over there. So all right. All right, let's just try that. And again, I've also said this before. Make sure if you're using a material in the main folder from something else that if you you copy it or you duplicate it so that you're not affecting the actual material that's being used somewhere else that may be important. Mesh water emitter master. It already says no thank you. It already knows. I didn't even drop it, but it already is thinking, oh man, here we go. More compiling. I don't know which one to use because some are just textures and some actually are real models. Alright, well, you know what we can do? Oh, you know what though? I don't think I imported the park one here. I don't think it let me because it needed a new project. Did I import the park stuff? Oh, maybe it did. Oh, it did. Alright, so City Park Mesh. Okay, I wasn't sure if I actually imported that into this. So let's see if we can open up the City Park. Which I think I just renamed it to Park. Park. City Park, here it is. And in our materials, let's see if we can find a water in here. And we do. Alright, and there's this M water version 1. Which, in all honesty, and maybe that's just because the tiling's all messed up, doesn't look the greatest. Let's see. Alright, how do I eject out of my, eject, abort. Okay, so not the greatest water, and I think it's because I have it scaled obnoxiously big. So I think if I can tile this better, if I go to the water here, and let's just call this one, this is going to be our map, volcano map. Okay, and we'll save this out. Okay, and right. You can do it. It's so far away. I have to. Even my fidget spinner can't keep up. It's so big. All right. Okay. All right. Well, clearly that water is not going to work for us. So I bet if I were to scale this down, it would look a lot better. So let's just try that. Let's go 100 by 100, which is not going to be nearly big enough. But then I can go center it and go 0, 0, 0 it. And if it doesn't look good, I'll just go into the actual project and see how they have it set up here. So I guess this is another way you can do it. Instead of having one big tile, you can obviously just put little chunks as long as they're hidden within the... Oh, that's not right. 1 by 500. Oh, no, that's not right either. What is it? Where did I have it before? Okay, so let's do 200 by 200. But you see what I'm saying? You can actually hide it within the mesh itself, and that's what I think most people do when they're trying to set stuff up. And that really is good for if you have like a lake, but if you have an ocean, I'm pretty sure you just use one big one. This is what I usually do. All right, and we can stretch it a little bit, but you obviously don't want to stretch it to the point where it affects the look of it. All right, so I'm trying to get it just on this side, just in here. And then let's see what it looks like when I go down. All right, well, obviously this water texture isn't the best on the way I have it set up. So let's just take a second to try to find something else. So I thought in the standard, in the starter pack, I thought they had a good water setup available, but I don't know if I actually imported that here. But yeah, I mean that watt is not good. It's not good for us. We need something better. A good shader, a good water shader would know when it's intersecting the land here, and then it would create like foam towards the edges of the intersection. And I'm sure there's stuff in here that has that. So sometimes it's better just to open up scenes and seeing what they're using, and then just taking that instead of trying to find it and searching. Okay. Save that. So I'm really happy with the fact that the oh yeah, like look at this water. That water's butter. So let's see if we can borrow this water. But I actually think this water is a painted texture, or yeah, so it's actually a texture they've painted on there. Let's just try to find it. Well, I guess they're all painted materials, but you know what I mean. It's only applied to areas that where they need to show it. Alright, let's just see if we can find it. I'm going to go down the list until I find it. Oh, okay, so it's the Master River. Probably. Right, that's the one. So let's just go ahead and just copy that, and let's bring it into our volcano, and let's say don't save that. Never save something if you're just borrowing from something else. We'll paste that in, and this is a spline they're using, which is just basically a usually it's just a line, right, that they draw, and then there's a material that calculates what to put there in the middle. So let's see if we can get some water out of this one. Yeah, so there's definitely a good water texture here that we can use. And I actually might just keep this in here because this would be good reference. And this is what I mean when I talk about when you're building stuff, you're better off bringing in the settings that I already created versus trying to create it yourself here. So let's go ahead and look for this is called river flow, which is probably why we didn't find it when we were looking for water. River flow underscore flow. And there it is. And so if I drop this, oops, I dropped that somewhere else. Tell me I dropped that on my grass. No. Alright. Alright, let me see my start point. Okay. Yeah, I did. So let's go ahead and just not save that because I accidentally, that's a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. So let's go in here and I'll say don't save, and then I'll go back in here and hopefully that will fix it. That's a no-no. Don't save. Alright, there we go. So be careful that you don't drag stuff in the wrong place. So again, we'll try one more time. A river flow. Alright, and it looks like the shaders just have to be built. So let's go ahead in here and let's just drop this on. It doesn't work like that. Let's put it here. Alright, so if it looks good in here, then it means we did it right. But maybe I can just use the spline technique they did. Alright, so I think it's actually showing up, but it's still but we don't see our, I don't know if that's a reflection on or what that's going on there. Okay, so it's just a reflection of that specific material, or more specifically, it's probably the lighting in the scene that's causing that to be so reflective. So we may have to tweak it. So, but also, let's try one of these other ones before I say that, because I remember now that it wasn't actually, it was actually this one that was probably the one. Yeah, so cool. So what I would recommend is I would recommend copying this over and then changing the parameters of the settings on this so you don't affect the other one. So I'm pretty sure I can go copy, but you got to be careful about. All right, so let's just call this. Every time I copy something, I say DigiFX and I say water flow, just so I know it's my version. Water flow. All right, and so I just want to make sure I don't screw up anything that's working with my stuff. Because in this one, now that we open this up, now we have the actual material, right? And so pretty cool. I don't know why it's not playing. Maybe it's just I think it's maxing out the GPU or something. But we can turn down this speed here. And the tiling, which is good. Tiling is a huge thing when it comes to how many times it affects it. Okay, so I think if I change this to like, let's get the foam on it I was talking about. All right, you know, so I know it's good water. Get the foam. Depth, speed, shore fall off, shoreline intensity. So all of this stuff you can change the look and the feel. It says don't touch this one, so I'm not going to touch it. But maybe if we go 0.05 here, let me save that. What does that do? Okay, so that actually makes it not as, it doesn't have the depth. Where is I don't know if I'm gonna figure out how to change the speed of that texture. And usually it's just like the speed, or it's, is it the Tesla? I think it actually might be the Tesla's. Yeah, I think it might be this one. Huh. And also, I don't see any like effects on the LAN, so maybe I have to do something with the landscape for it to affect it, but for the most part it shouldn't. So the only thing I want to do before I start messing with this too much is I just want to open up the original river flow one that we took this from, and I want to make sure that I didn't change anything there, and it doesn't look like I did, because ours is 2 and this one's still 10. So sometimes you may think you've created a new one, specifically with materials, textures, and shaders. Shaders usually are connected to the material, and the material also uses textures within it. So even if you make a new material, you may be using the same shader, and if you change the shader, you can affect or if you change the material, you can affect the shader everywhere. So you got to be very careful about not using the same stuff if you don't know if it can work. Hey, is it just me, or is it's doing something with the LAN funny? What's going on here? Oh, I just noticed that. Oh, super cool. That's totally awesome. So when you, for some reason, it like affects the LAN some places. There's an effector there, which is totally awesome there. Awesome. So it kind of like the LAN, so I guess it is working. It's just a matter of getting this to look good, you know, because that doesn't look that good. And a lake wouldn't be flowing like that if it was a still lake. It would just be pretty much still, clear, and that's something that, you know, we can fix. I also got to look into the new water that they showcased. I don't know if they showcases are available in the engine. That's something I have to figure out, and something I will figure out, because this is too blue and dark, and I think we're above the water line right now. But if I go here and I just raise my start point a little bit higher above the water, I should be able to see it. All right, so you go. Now we're floating on the lake. All right, move on. So got some water, got our landscape, got the textures in place, did some modeling. I think that was a really good video. It's about 2 hours here, an hour 45. So I'm gonna cut it out there and call it a night. And once I get all this stuff set up, I'll probably come back to this stuff and and showcase starting to build the actual level out with the different things. I just have to plan and figure out what I'm going to include in this specific example and figure out where I'm going to import this. I'm really just the next couple of weeks, if not months, I'm going to be staging and importing a lot of assets. And asset collection is a huge thing when it comes to game development and getting the resources you need to actually create something fun and engaging. And also making sure you have unique resources yourself. So I'm going to leave it there. This is Nate Miller from DigiFX. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and I appreciate your time. And if there's any questions, feel free to reach out, contact